Have you ever felt like you were being watched? Not by a camera or someone passing by you on the sidewalk, but from the farthest places you wouldn't expect someone to be hiding. Being stalked is one of the scariest experiences someone could go through. And although the internet has exposed stalkers more than ever, it has also made it easier than ever to find people and study their every move. Today, we're going to be covering some of the most chilling Reddit stalker stories I could find. So fasten your seatbelt, grab your popcorn, and let's get right into this. On April 22nd, 2022, a user named Meanwhile in Paris would make a post to the r/Let's Not Meet subreddit. The post explained a woman's terrifying experience with a man that had followed her home and attempted to get into her apartment. The post is as follows. This story happened a few years ago. I was in my early 20s and was studying in Paris, France. I was going home from university. I usually took a short bus ride and walked the rest of the way. That day, I felt slightly uncomfortable. I could sense some guy looking intensely at me. I was used to unpleasant, unsolicited gazes, but this time, his gaze felt beastly. It's hard to explain why, but I felt like a prey being stalked. I decided to get off the bus a few stops early. I wanted to avoid him and didn't want him to see where I usually got off. Like I learned in the movies, I waited until someone else pressed the stop button and waited until the last moment to stand up and leave. I didn't notice him getting off the bus. Just as I was feeling the relief of having escaped an uncomfortable situation, I looked over my shoulder, and there he was, a few meters behind. I had the distressing feeling that his eyes had just looked away the moment I turned. I walked into a shop, took my phone, and pretended to be taking a call. When I couldn't see him anymore, I exited and made my way home as fast as possible. I zigzagged and crossed the street at every crossing. Finally, I believed that him getting off at the same stop as me was just a coincidence. When I reached my building, I looked back one last time, and there he was. His alarming gaze on me, smirking. I ran up to my apartment, climbing the stairs 4 at a time. I reached the top floor, squeezed through my door, locked it, and froze. My intercom was ringing. Don't ask me why I picked it up. I regretted it the moment I did. I could hear the opposite flat intercom ringing as well. He had pressed all the buttons one by one, hoping someone would open, but now he knew my name. I felt like a deer in the headlights, frozen.
"Open the door, please,"
said a pleading voice.
"I just want to talk to you."
Somehow, I couldn't move or speak.
"Come to the window,"
he added.
"Look at me. You'll see, I'm not a bad guy."
Something clicked. He wanted to locate my apartment in the building. I was not going to make that mistake. I hung up in shock. I waited by the door without moving for what seemed like hours. When I finally managed to calm myself, I called my long-distance boyfriend. "Call the police," he said immediately. Why didn't I call the police? I don't know. Today, it would be the first thing I would do. The fear of making a big deal out of something not important, perhaps. What an idiot I was. I called my best friend instead. I didn't want to feel alone. I told her all about it, and after a while, I felt better. Safe. We started laughing. Suddenly, the intercom rang again. 2 hours had passed since I'd come home. I answered.
"Gabrielle, open, please,"
said the voice. I still remember the chills I felt. He was still there. He was there all this time. I was silent, petrified. He was silent, but I could sense his trepidation.
"Gabrielle, let me in. I'm so thirsty,"
he said.
"Just give me a glass of water."
This broke the tension. I hung up. Curled up in a corner in a fetal position, terrified, I waited. I was scared to make a sound. I knew he couldn't hear me from the hall, but I was scared to even breathe. The intercom rang again, and again. I didn't answer this time. I crouched to the sofa and fell asleep in exhaustion. I heard the intercom ring one more time in the middle of the night. I woke up in the morning, afraid to leave my apartment. I called my dad, who came to pick me up. There was no one in the hall, but there was a note in my mailbox.
"Gabrielle, I'm a nice guy. You should have opened up to me."
We immediately went to the nearest police station. The police listened and of course told me that I should not hesitate to call them. My dad called a locksmith to install digicode on the building door the same day and wrote a message to each one of my neighbors asking to not open the door to anyone they didn't expect. He sat in the cafe in front of my building with 2 friends every evening for more than a week. I never saw the stalker again. After this episode, I used a different route to and from university every day. I kept my phone tightly in my hand and looked back every few meters. Today, I am still very observant of my surroundings, and I never answer the door if I am not expecting someone. So, people, if you ever find yourself in any kind of uncomfortable situation, call the police. Don't be an idiot like me. Be safe, everyone. What's so unsettling about this one to me is just how close this stalker got without ever needing to directly interact with her. He waited outside her apartment for hours, learned her name, left a note in her mailbox, all without raising an alarm loud enough for anyone else to hear. On October 4th, 2022, a post was made to the r/creepy encounters subreddit. The post gave an overview of a woman's terrifying experience with a man that showed up at her parents' house, offering information about her and trying to find her. The post reads as follows. Weird guy shows up at my parents' house at 1 a.m., looking for me and using details of my life that were valid 20 years ago. This happened 3 nights ago, and I am going crazy trying to figure it all out. I just moved into a new apartment 1 month ago, and I'm still unpacking and settling in. I have been using my parents' address as my mailing address all of my life. 3 nights ago, my parents called me super freaked out at 2 a.m. and proceeded to tell me this story. Apparently, at 1 a.m., someone started banging on their front door and repeatedly ringing the doorbell. My stepdad walks downstairs and opens the door, leaving the front glass door closed and locked. There was a man standing outside. He looked to be in his 30s, with a black hoodie on, with the hood covering his face. He didn't have any distinguishing facial features, facial hair, or tattoos. Neither my stepdad nor my mother, who was watching the whole thing from a window, recognized the man. The man says,
I'm so sorry to bother you, but I'm looking for Jane Doe. Do you know if she lives here?
My stepdad plays dumb and says, Who? The man proceeds to state my full name again and says that my boyfriend is worried because I didn't come home that night. He claims to be a friend of my boyfriend and tells my stepdad that they are both out looking for me, worried because I didn't show up at home. I don't have a boyfriend. I live by myself with my 3 dogs, and I haven't been in a relationship in the past 5 to 6 months. Here's the weird part. My stepdad asked the guy what boyfriend he was talking about, and the man told him the name of my boyfriend I had when I was in 10th grade, nearly 20 years ago. My boyfriend in 10th grade has a very, very unique Italian name. I've never met anyone with a full name even close to his. He said my high school boyfriend's name a few more times to ensure my stepdad heard him, and repeated that they are very worried about me, even asking my stepdad if he was sure I wasn't inside. At this point, my stepdad was weirded out and closed and locked the door in his face. The man does not leave. He lingers in front of my parents' house for the next 10 minutes, smoking cigarettes and talking on the phone. Finally, my parents called the cops. About 5 minutes before the cops arrive, the man walks down to the dead end on their block and drives away in a silver car. My stepdad was unable to get the license plate. My parents file a police report and nothing else happens. After I heard this story, I was going nuts over the weird details. How would someone know who I dated nearly 20 years ago? And what would the motive be of making up a story that included that weird detail about my past? I have not had contact with the 10th grade boyfriend in over a decade. Yesterday, I decided to message him on Facebook to see if he has any insight. I tell him the whole story. He was as confused as I am and claims to have no part in it. I am at a loss. I'm also really freaked out that some strange man is going through that much trouble at 1 a.m. to look for me. Any insights or ideas would be greatly appreciated. No, nothing else weird has happened since then. After this post was made, many users would make comments. asking OP if she was in any legal trouble or if she was being sued by someone that might want to find her. She would clarify that she's not in any legal trouble and she has no reason to think that someone might want to sue her. She would also say, "I had an expired registration ticket that I did not show up to court for, but I believe I got a letter in the mail just asking me to pay a really large fee, so I don't think that's related. I did take a personal loan out. I took it out about a year and a half ago. It wasn't anything too crazy, and I was really good with making payments on time, until about 6 months ago when I had a medical issue. Currently, I am really behind on payments, but to my knowledge, I have not defaulted on the loan yet. What do you guys think? Is this related? Let me know your thoughts." She would make an additional update to the post, clarifying more information. "I'm so sorry it's taken me so long to update. It's been a super busy time at work. Unfortunately, there isn't much to report. I called the loan company. They claim they have nothing to do with it. All of my friends and family also noted that the 1 a.m. factor kind of rules that out anyway. Nothing else strange has happened to my parents. I went there for the first time last night and kept a close eye out for anything, but didn't observe anything out of the norm. So this still remains a mystery. I'll be sure to update if something else happens." Nearly 2 years later, on July 12th, 2024, she would do just that. An update post was created with the title, "Finally have an update to the weird guy that shows up at my parents' door using details about my life that were valid 20 years ago." The post reads as follows. "Alright, 1 year later, I finally have an update to this mystery. After this happened, my family and a couple of my close friends have been talking about this mystery in depth to try to put our heads together and figure it out. We all have our own theories, but ultimately no definitive answer as to what happened or who this creeper was. So we pretty much put it to rest and only continued to joke about it once in a while. Here's the update. My stepsister and her fiance were at a house party right after the holidays. While they were there, they started talking to a girl that neither of them knew. After some time talking together, the girl started talking about her ex-boyfriend and how they were going through a really tough time together. They had just recently broken up, and she admitted that she was a wreck over it. Somehow, it came up that this girlfriend's ex-boyfriend was my 10th grade boyfriend, the one with the really unique Italian name. The whole situation wasn't that big of a coincidence, since I went to high school with my stepsister's fiance and we have a lot of mutual friends, so it makes sense that they were at a party that would include some people I went to high school with. As soon as my stepsister and her fiance heard this, they both started freaking out, and without revealing too many details, they told the girl about the mystery and how weird it was. As they are telling the story, the girl's face starts to go white, and she looks like she's about to cry. My stepsister and her fiance tried to console her, and they asked her what's wrong. The girl starts to tell them that a few nights ago, while she was sleeping, someone started banging on her door at 1 a.m., just like what happened to my parents. The girl jumps out of bed and says she was absolutely terrified by how loud and aggressive someone was banging on her door. She said she literally thought it was going to break in. The girl has a Ring camera, so she looks at her phone. There on the camera is a guy in a black hoodie banging on her door. She obviously pretends like she isn't home and keeps all of the lights off. He continues banging. As she is getting ready to dial 911, the guy stops and leaves. She said she was absolutely terrified. For whatever reason, she didn't end up calling the cops, but may have gone to stay with a friend that night or the night after. My stepsister and fiance are shocked by the details and how similar it is to my story, especially because of the mutual ex-boyfriend we share, except this girl literally just broke things off with him. They ask the girl if she has any idea who the guy is, and she said no, but that it definitely is not the actual ex-boyfriend. She said this guy was much taller and heavier than our shared mutual ex. This mystery is still unsolved, and these new details honestly just make my head spin even more. No one else has shown up to my parents' door since the actual incident 1 year ago. Yeah, this is the kind of story taken straight from a horror movie. A man shows up in the dead of night, asking this girl's parents where she is and calling her by her full name, referencing a boyfriend from nearly 2 decades ago. And then, a full year later, someone else has the exact same thing happen to her. The same hour, same hoodie, same pounding on the door. Whoever this is seems to be targeting women with ties to one specific person, but even that person, the 10th grade ex, doesn't seem to be involved at all, which means that someone else is watching and digging into their past. In the end, we're left with more questions than answers about this story, but I'm really hoping that OP can figure out what really happened here. On July 2nd, 2025, a post would be made to the r/creepy encounters subreddit. The post was made by a woman explaining that she was followed home by an intimidating man that continued to stalk her over the following weeks. The post is as follows. I'm very fortunate to live somewhere with beautiful walks nearby, so I like to get out and walk nearly every day. This place is also really safe, so it never crossed my mind that I'd be in the position I'm currently in. It started last year. I don't keep a routine, but like I said, I'd like to get out and walk most days. It was a beautiful day, and the paths were very busy with dog walkers and locals enjoying the weather and scenery. I took my time and didn't pay too much attention to anyone because, like I said, this is a super safe place. When I turned back for home, I was aware someone was walking behind me. Not that close, so I assumed that they were just heading back the same way as me. That's not unusual, as it's a very popular path. When I got home, I took my shoes off in the usual place, which is positioned so that I can see through the kitchen window, which points the same way as the front door. I noticed that there was a man looking through the kitchen window and really looking into my kitchen. Not a quick glance, it was a deep staring, taking in every detail. Then he moved away and knocked on my front door. Now, I don't open the door unless I'm expecting someone, and if it's just a package, there's a strong chance I'll just let them leave it at the front door. I'd planned on ignoring him, but he knocked harder and said something close to,
I followed you home from the path.
He gave me some story about how his mother used to live next door, and he wanted to know how long I'd lived there. I told him that if he wants info on the neighbors on the side his mother supposedly lived on, then my neighbors on the other side have lived there for 50 years, and they'd be able to tell him everything. He was irritated by that answer and switched tactics. He kept trying to invite himself in for a cup of tea, and I politely but firmly told him to leave and locked the door. I didn't go anywhere by myself for a couple of weeks and kept an eye out for him, but nothing. So I started going out by myself again. And then, there he was. This time, riding a bike. I was wandering near my favorite spot, and he rode his bike around me in a big circle 3 times. He just watched me. I gave him my best "go rotten hell" glare, and he left. He kept popping up. The next time, I was on my way back from the shop, and he said,
Hi.
My legal name.
It's a nice evening.
I never gave him my name, and he carried right on, so it was uncomfortable, but nothing horrendous. I'll note that he popped up on all of the different paths around here. There were a few more instances like that, 6, maybe even 7. Then, I did something stupid, and I went against my gut. It had been a long week, and I was dying for a walk to clear my head. It was winter, pitch black outside, but I needed something small from the shop. My gut told me, don't do it. Don't go out. I had a horrible feeling before I even got my shoes on. I ignored it and told myself I was being stupid. It's a beautiful, safe area, and I was just being anxious and ridiculous. I got to the shop fine. I hurried along and went to the place where he'd ridden circles around me, as it's the start of a loop that's short but beautiful, which is what I needed. My gut kept telling me, it's bad. Don't do it. Get home. But I hurried along. Then, I was at the very darkest point, completely alone, and I saw a light coming towards me. A bike light. Of course, it was him. Now, I'll add at this point that I'm pretty tough. I've been in bars and the like where guys got grabby. I've had guys much bigger than me threaten violence and try to steal from me. Every time I squared up to them and gave strong, try, I dare you body language. They cursed me out and I left. I was completely unfazed. That night though, I was seriously rattled. The vibes coming off this guy are bad. really bad, so I was cornered. Nowhere to go but to finish the loop. He rode around me and settled in right next to me, where he mentioned my address, my legal name, my pets, and gave me some history of his life before he started pushing how lonely he was. He really wanted me to go to his house for a cup of tea. Then, he casually mentioned how he'd watched me take my trash bags out to the bins, which was something I'd missed. I don't know how I didn't see him, but I didn't. I told him my husband was expecting me home, but he didn't believe I had a husband. I was polite with minimal responses until he gave up and rode off, clearly irritated. I was really rattled. I rushed home and told my husband, who was surprised it had bothered me so much because of the other stuff I mentioned above. He witnessed a lot of that and saw how unfazed I was. We agreed that I wasn't going anywhere alone. That was a few months ago. Last week, I told my husband that the paths are getting busy again, and it might be safe for me to walk alone at the peak of the busy hours. Then, a few days ago, we were sitting on a bench enjoying the scenery when we saw the guy walk up, pretty close to us. He stood about 20 feet away and just stared at us for a good 5 minutes. We didn't acknowledge him because we felt it was better that way. I should note that my husband's around 6'2", and he looks rough and ready for a brawl. He'd take down anyone who worried me without a second thought, so I'm really lucky in that regard. But we obviously don't want to start a fight out of nowhere in public. We're not stupid. When the stalker guy rode off, my husband said to me that he understood what I'd been talking about. The vibes from stalker guy are seriously creepy. They even set my husband on edge. So that's how I returned to never leaving home again. And there's nothing I can do about it because the police aren't going to act on somebody just saying, "This guy really creeps me out." And my husband's not going to risk legal action against him by getting into a fight. What's so disturbing about this story to me is the slow, unsettling buildup of this guy who just won't go away. From showing up at her door to knowing personal details that he shouldn't, it's clear that he had been watching her for a while. What's especially unnerving about this one is that there's not really much she can do. The man didn't do anything overtly criminal, so the police don't really have anything to go off of. The subtle persistence of the stalker in this one just really creeped me out, but let me know what you guys think. On December 13th, 2020, a post would be made by user Ace of Hades 17 to the r/RBI subreddit detailing strange events that he and his roommate had experienced. The post reads as follows. Unknown Venus device somewhere in my apartment. Are we being stalked or recorded? Need advice on what it could be. Strange occurrences I need to find some sort of reasoning or explanation for. I don't know if all of these instances are related or connected somehow, but these are just some things that stood out to me. Are we potentially being stalked or recorded by someone in our apartment? I'm the kind of person that loves creepy stories of stalkers, ghosts, murders, and so on. Because of this interest, it makes me have a pretty bleak view of humanity and always think that people are generally horrible and always up to something, which makes me always prepared to defend myself or loved ones. Maybe because I read all of these stories, I've started to look for it. Maybe I'm just quick to think that something sinister is going on when it may just be something harmless. I'll let you decide. Anyways, I'm a college student and I basically live in 2 apartments. I stay at my brother's apartment a lot, but I mostly stay at my own apartment that I share. I live with my friend, who is a pretty attractive girl, who is basically a pixie fairy, which, as a guy, I know older men love to drool over. So I always worry that since she's not as vigilant as me, she would be an easy target for a stalker or a creep. Today we got a Christmas tree for the apartment, and we were just chilling in the living room when we heard a sound from a device in the kitchen, which is like 2 feet away in the next room, make a swooshing sound, and then an Alexa-type male voice recording saying the word Venus. It sounded as if a device was turning on or off or something like that. We don't own any Alexa products or anything like that. We both have the female Siri on our iPhones too. We both look at each other and say, "What the fuck made that sound?" I walked over to where the sound was coming from to see if our phones were over there, but there weren't any mobile devices or speakers in the kitchen. I go back in the living room to see if one of us got a message on our phones, but neither of us did. She asked me if I was fucking with her, but I was going to ask her the same thing. This kind of freaked her out, and with my paranoia, I immediately thought if it could be some sort of voice recording or something to spy on her, cause I'm not here a lot and I was actually about to leave. The only devices in the kitchen are a Consori air fryer, the microwave, oven, and a vegan water fountain for the cats. I searched on the internet about anything that could have made the sound and said Venus, but nothing useful showed up. It's exam week, and I usually go study at my brother's apartment, so I had to leave, and I didn't want to freak her out with my conspiracy theories, but I did. As I was driving to my brother's, I was thinking about it and remembered that about 2 weeks ago, we were talking in her room for a second, when we both heard vibrating from a phone. I said, "Someone's calling you," but she had nothing on her phone. I even looked at mine, and there wasn't anything on there either, but the buzzing was still going on. There are upstairs neighbors, but they are short-term occupants, Airbnb guests. The phone sounded like it was in our apartment, but we couldn't pinpoint where. It wasn't from upstairs because we usually only hear faint footsteps, loud bangs, or yelling and such because they are old New Orleans wood floors, and we wouldn't have been able to hear a phone buzzing that clearly, even if it was laying bare on the wood floor above us. In my research, the only thing I could come up with that could have possibly made the Venus noise was maybe an LG Venus phone turning on. When you turn it on, it makes a swooshing sound that may be similar to the swooshing sound recording we heard, but I don't remember it specifically. The only thing I haven't found is a video of the phone turning on and making the swooshing and then saying Venus. Maybe it says it in a new update for the phone, but I don't know. That's the only thing I could come up with which could potentially be terrifying if there is a cell phone turning on in our apartment that we have been living in for 5 months. Neither of us own an extra phone, especially a burner. I need to know what this could be. One last weird occurrence at this apartment was when I was about to leave. I heard a weird noise come from the upstairs apartment, as if somebody dropped a bowling ball on a slanted wood floor, causing it to bounce and then roll. I brushed it off as it was probably just some Airbnb guests making their usual stomps and bangs from upstairs, but I knew there weren't any guests staying that day because it was 7 p.m. and I hadn't heard any noises besides that all day, not even footsteps. As I was driving off, for some reason, on that night, I was curious if there were even any guests staying there at the moment. I decided to just drive around the perimeter of the apartment and noticed that all of the second floor's lights were completely off, as if nobody was home at all. This was kind of weird, cause what made that noise a couple of minutes ago? At the bottom of the thread, he would give a short update. Update 1. So it also just dawned on me that every single instance involved me in some way telling her I'm about to head out for the night. Just another detail I thought of. Could just be coincidental. This post immediately gained attention, with commenters offering theories as to what could explain the creepy occurrences. Most users asked OP if it was possible that he had any Bluetooth devices that for whatever reason might play the audio that he claimed to be hearing, with others offering explanations such as squatters and home intruders and telling him that he should check the home for hidden cameras. Additionally recommending that he immediately install home surveillance cameras around and outside the house to get to the bottom of this. Suffice it to say, users were hooked on this story and would be eagerly waiting for updates to OP's situation. Around 1 month later, users' curiosity would be quelled when Ace of Hades gave his second update, titled Venus Noise Possible Stalker Update. Found something disturbing that is messing with my head. The post would read, "Hi everyone. So I posted a while back in December, trying to identify some strange things that were happening in my friend and I's apartment. Since my last post, I have done a few things. I searched every crack and crevice in the apartment and came up with anything out of the ordinary. I purchased a hidden camera/bug detector and searched throughout the entire house, and still didn't come up with anything. I now sleep within reach of not 1, but 2 guns in different rooms just in case something were to happen. For the past month or so, everything seemed to be fine, nothing out of the ordinary, and eventually we even forgot about the whole thing in general. Then, we started hearing a weird noise outside that sounded kind of like an intermittent buzzing or hum towards the back of the house where the bathroom window is located. Houses make weird noises all the time, so I told my friend not to worry about it because there is nothing in that little alleyway on the side of the house besides overgrown plants and an air conditioning unit. A couple days later, I was smoking a cigarette at night when I started thinking about what that could have been, so I went around the house to check it out. When I turned the corner, I saw a metal bench that wasn't there a couple weeks ago, around the time I made the first post and checked the house inside and out. A bench is no big deal, especially when you're renting a house. The owner is gonna store some stuff without you knowing. The thing that weirded me out though was where it was placed. It was intentionally put right up against the side of the house, under our bathroom window. I took a picture of it because something about it rubbed me the wrong way. The thing that weirded me out is that when a grown man like me stands on it, you're at the perfect height to try to sneak a peek through the tiny cracks in the bathroom window's old curtain. When I could see through the cracks, I felt a knot in my stomach. Both of us get a strange feeling whenever showering or using the toilet, as if being fully exposed. I don't know if that's why, but it could explain some of those feelings. I immediately sent the picture to our landlord, and they say that they don't own that bench, so it must have been left over from previous tenants. I knew that wasn't the case because the bench wasn't there in December when I did a whole sweep of the house. This really creeped me the fuck out. Who is going back there? And how did somebody place a whole bench without us even knowing? We literally never go back there. My roommate has never even seen the side of the house because there's nothing back there of any interest besides an air conditioner unit and a couple windows. The night I took a picture of the bench, I then moved the bench away from the window and flipped it upside down just to see what would happen. I checked back a week later, and the bench is in the original place I found it, under the bathroom window again, right side up. Fuck that. A couple days ago, we immediately set up cameras on the exterior of the house. They cover the door, the whole front porch, and the driveway on the side of the house where our cars are, that also has eyes on one of the entrances to where the little back alleyway can be accessed, so we now see if someone is walking back there at night. The motion sensor floodlight that lights up the driveway does go off in the middle of the night on the most random nights. I stay up late so I always see it turn on, but figured it was just squirrels, rats, or even possums. But the alleyway can also be accessed from the street by just jumping into the neighbor's yard and then jumping the next short fence that separates us from our neighbor without being seen on camera. Now it's just another game of wait and see. I really hope this is just a weird coincidence, cause this is just fucking strange. If there's actually a peeping Tom or a stalker, or hopefully not something worse, then I'm grabbing my gun and going after this person myself. This is nerve-wracking, just waiting to see if the worst case scenario is going to play out. This second update escalated what initially might have been some odd technology malfunction into a full-blown stalker situation, and confirmed all of OP and users' suspicions that he was being watched or surveilled. What's especially unsettling about all of this is the bench. The placement is obviously not accidental. That's someone deliberately scoping out the house and finding a vulnerable vantage point to watch people inside the home. And to make it even creepier, it was intentionally moved back to the window in complete silence after OP moved it and flipped it over. The strange Venus voice he was hearing also happened before he left the house, making it possible that whoever is responsible is actively monitoring his movements. That's the kind of pattern stalkers establish when they're tracking a victim's routine to exploit normal, everyday vulnerabilities. In conclusion, these two posts are very concerning, and I really hope OP was able to figure out what was going on with this person watching him and his roommate. He unfortunately hasn't given another update, and his account has been inactive for 4 years, so we may never find out what really happened here. If you guys have any possible explanations, I would love to hear your ideas in the comments. And that's all for today's video. These are some of the scariest stalker stories and experiences that I could find online, so I really hope you guys enjoyed them. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching all the way through. And you might as well subscribe and like the video. I mean, you already made it this far. If you haven't already, make sure to follow us on TikTok and join our Discord server. The links are down in the description. Have a great rest of your night or day, whatever time it is for you. Once again, thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.